Hello, everybody. Hello, hello. It is Wine Wednesday, and that means a Leslie and Friends Live today, and a very special Leslie and Friends Live because we're starting early. Normally, I do my Leslie Lives at 5 p.m. California time. But today, because we have a fantastic guest who is joining me from Portugal, from the beautiful city of Porto, or Oporto, in Portugal, one of my favorite places in the world, which we'll talk about, Miguel. But we decided to start a little earlier. So it's lunchtime wine instead of cocktail hour wine for us West Coasters. And it is cocktail wine for you. It's dinner wine for you, Miguel, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
So I'd like to introduce Miguel Roquette. He is of the family that owns Quinta do Crasto, which is, in my estimation and many others, one of Portugal's absolute best estates and properties. They, of course, make port wine, but today we're really talking about their dry-styled table wines, and we'll be tasting 3 wines. But, you know, port is not off limits. We'll talk about port. We'll talk about the process. We'll talk about this gorgeous place of Portugal. I am a huge lover of Portugal and all the wines in it. I'm going to, be showing you all maps. You know that if you've joined me on Leslie and Friends Live, or just Leslie Live before, that I do love to show maps and photos of places I've been to put things into perspective. So this is Portugal and sort of the wine regions. I'll have you talk, Miguel, about, being a very small country. But Miguel is right there in the city of Porto, in that kind of black dot right there. That's where he's calling in from right now. And we're traveling up to the Douro, that dark Burgundy region up there in sort of you'll see these incredible steep vineyards in the Douro River Valley. But Portugal has so many fantastic wines, from the sparkling, Baga-based wines of Bairrada to Moscatel de Setúbal to beautiful wines from the Douro and Vinho Verde, of course, Alvarinho. But we're tasting these amazing wines and really, hanging our hat on being in the Douro with you today, Miguel. So welcome. And I need a drink after that long introduction. Bon noite, right?
Thank you for having us, and for having me and having my family on the show, Leslie. We're really honored and proud to be here. And yes, and we're going to be sharing with you a little bit of the magic of the Douro Valley in the north of Portugal. So
I say we're going to be traveling there with our eyes, our ears, and our taste buds today, right? If we can't be there in person, we can be there with those other senses today.
Exactly. Well, as you said, and the Portugal is a small country. It's a very small country, surrounded by Spain in the inland, and then the full Atlantic coastline. I think it's smaller than California, so about 550 miles from north to south. But we do have an enormous diversity of landscapes, and it's absolutely fascinating. And we have, when it comes to wine is part of our culture. Portuguese. I don't know if you know this. I don't know if this is embarrassing or not, but we are the number one wine drinkers in the world per capita. No one drinks more wine than we do.
Really?
In the world.
I didn't know that. I thought for sure the Brazilians did.
Well, they also drink.
I don't know, maybe the Brits, no?
The Brits, they drink also quite a lot, but we are on the top. We're number one. And we have, in this such small country, we have over 30 different wine regions. And as you said, so many different styles of wines, from Vinho Verde, that fizzy, sparkling, white, low alcohol, Douro wines, the Douro, Alentejo, Ribatejo, Bairrada. We have Madeira, obviously, in the Atlantic, wines of Madeira. And this is truly part of our culture. Wine in Portugal is, it's one of the, it's what we're known for. And it's very hard to find wines from other countries here, unless you go to really specific restaurants. All the Portuguese, we have so much to choose from that we only drink.
You do. And again, you're a small country. I mean, talk a little bit about that. I'm in California, and I think Portugal's even smaller than California, isn't it?
It is it's even smaller than California, 10 million. And but we've been everywhere in the world, as you know, in the 1500s. So we have, it's fun because you find a little bit of Portugal pretty much everywhere in the world, and that's fantastic. In fact, Portuguese is the most spoken language in the south of the equator.
Oh, because of Brazil?
Because of Brazil, Angola, Mozambique, in East Timor, Macau, all the ex-colonies that we had. So yes, and Brazil, of course, very important because 220 million there. So so Portuguese is, and you speak some Portuguese.
Well, we have friends and family in Brazil. And I certainly am a fan of Portugal, have been there half a dozen times in the past decade or so. And I adore not only the country, but the food, the place, the people, and certainly the wine diversity and the wines. And there's so much going on. You know, you think of the history of Portugal and port wine, which we can talk about. But there still is so much innovation and so much going on, especially with the wines we're going to be tasting today, with these Douro wines that are dry in style, that are what we call table wines, not fortified. We'll talk about the difference of that. But it goes to show you that the country is small in size, but so large in stature when it comes to wine, from history to modern innovations that are going on. But first, talk about not only you, but the family and the Crasto estate, the Quinta do Crasto estate, because I'm going to show people a picture of this. You're going to want to visit, Miguel, when you're done listening to this.
Right open.
This is the estate. This is from your website, this beautiful picture. Look at this. That shows you the absolute incredible landscape of the Douro River Valley. That's the Douro River. And you see Quinta do Crasto estate right there. So explain the wonder of this photo. Explain it to us. Take us there, Miguel. Take us to Portugal to Crasto.
So Douro is it's a unique region in terms. Well, it's a unique wine region in the world. It's actually officially the oldest wine region in the world in terms of demarcation. The very first demarcation in the Douro happened in 1756. So about 100 years before Bordeaux was demarcated.
Mm-hmm.
It's very controlled. This is World Heritage with UNESCO since 2001. From our side, Quinta do Crasto, so just for you folks to understand, Quinta, it's the Portuguese word for estate or vineyard.
And I'm going to tell folks the label of that. Quinta do Crasto is what we're talking about, Miguel's family's estate.
Correct. So that stands for vineyard or state, and Crasto, it's a corruption for the Latin castrum, which means Roman fortress. So as you see on the picture that you just shared, Leslie, you see the shape of the state. We have that little volcano or whatever.
Hang on, let me get my high tech imagery back. There we go.
So you see that we have the buildings and the wineries and the house going uphill. At the very top, there's a very old 19th century chapel. But as you can see, we have vineyards facing east and vineyards facing west. So we're surrounded by vineyards, and you can see why. You can imagine why the Romans would choose this as a strategic site. They will stay at the very top of this hill with 360-degree view. And this is actually, we found 5-6 years ago some excavations with an archaeologist, and we find the final proof. He came to the table when we were having lunch, and he gave to my father a Roman coin with the stamp of the emperor. So we can say that 1,800 years ago, this was a major Roman site, without any doubt. I'm thinking about buying a metal detector and going around, to see if we find.
That's incredible. Well, because again, it means Roman fort is Crasto.
Right.
So the history there is incredibly deep. And how did the connection, because the estate I know dates to 1615, but how did that connection happen with your family owning the property? I mean, you've been you're the fourth generation in your family that have been in the wine business in Portugal. So that's more than 100 years. What's the connection there?
Well, the first references to our estate, they date back to 1615. This is what you read in the front gate. As you arrive at the property, on the front gate, there are two dates, 1615 and 1918. So 1615 is the very first references to Crasto. So we are considered to be one of the oldest states in the Douro Valley. And in 2015, we've celebrated our 400th anniversary, which was quite impressive.
And we'll talk more about that as we get tasting the wines, because you have an incredibly special way that you're paying tribute to 400 years, don't you?
Yes,
the Honore. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. Yeah.
So 1918, this is the date when my great-grandfather purchased the Quinta. My great-grandfather, he was a port shipper. He was a very important port shipper. So he had warehouses in Oporto. He was a port trader, but he bought the Quinta in 1918. So in 2018, 100 years in the family. So
and explain briefly for folks who are either tuning in now or will be watching this later. When you say Porto, the city of Porto, or Oporto,
yes.
And it is a gorgeous, it's sort of for those of you who haven't been and want to go desperately, it's a fabulous city, sort of I say a mix between the hills of San Francisco, right? This beautiful hilly, almost a Vancouver-esque almost too, Canada. But you have such a cosmopolitan city with incredible history and beauty. And it's small, but it's at the mouth of the Douro. So correct. Miguel's, where that black dot is in Porto. And as you go up to the Douro, I think it's only about 60 miles to that Burgundy area of the Douro, right? Or
yes, how long? A little bit further than that. A little bit further than that. For us, now we have outstanding infrastructures in Portugal. Right. Highways and tunnels, so we can, gosh, I remember being a kid, the trip to Crasto would take approximately 4.5 to 5 hours by car. Nowadays,
yeah, because the roads are like this too.
Nowadays, you get up there in an hour and a half max. So it's right. Fantastic.
And people would take boats up the river. And so the point is, even though it's close, it looks close on a map, it actually takes you a while because you're going up, to this.
There's two ways to get there. You can go by car, you can go by boat, and you can also go by train. And we have a train station right at the state. So it's right. 2.5 hours train ride, and it's absolutely fantastic. But Douro is connected. That's the river. It's the name of the river. The river starts in the north of Spain. It runs for about 500 something miles all the way down to the city of Porto. And obviously the city of Porto, and just to mention one thing, Leslie, Porto, it's a very cosmopolitan city. It has close to 900 years of history. So and it has been awarded for the last without 2020, but it has been awarded 3 times for 3 consecutive years as European Best Destination.
And it is. I don't want to even let out the secret, but it's fantastic because the food is so great, and the cheeses and the gin bars and everything there is fantastic.
Seafood and fish, outstanding as well. Yes, and we have a little bit. It's a very diverse gastronomy, a lot of culture, and in European standards, Portugal, it's still very affordable, in terms of accommodation, food, transportation. So
that's right. Incredibly affordable.
So now we are hurting a little bit because of the pandemic, because everything is shut down. We have no tourists. So I remember that in 2019, there were 4 tourists for each one of us, So, I mean, there were always, we were just flooded with tourists everywhere, and people just like it. One thing that I'm also very proud to say is that Portugal is the 3rd safest country in the world. And this attracts a lot of people also.
Well, I'll tell you, a friend of mine, Leonardo, is Brazilian, and he just joined us, and he's I do love Portugal. So you can speak a little Portuguese to him right now. I know your wife is Brazilian, so.
Bom dia, Leonardo. Bem-vindo.
Tudo bem, Leo?
Tudo bem. Saúde.
Saúde. That's when you say cheers to a Brazilian, it's saúde. Saúde. Yeah, we haven't drunk enough wine yet already. Hang on. For those of you just joining us, I see a few more eyeballs came in. I am talking with the wonderful, let me hide that. I'm talking with the wonderful Miguel Roquette of Quinta do Crasto in Portugal's Douro Valley, and historic property we're talking about just Portugal in general, taking a trip, with our eyes and our ears to Portugal because it's so beautiful. So you've talked about the history of the property now and your family being in it since 1918, purchasing the property. And sort of the evolution. Talk a little bit about port making and the importance of port. And then because I had some questions from people about the Lagarde photos that I posted, and then we'll transition into table wines because it really is the fascinating future of much of Portugal.
In a very, I think, best thing to say here to explain that is this: we are, and we will always be port producers. Port is in our DNA. Port is part of our history. It's part of our tradition, and port is obviously it's what the Douro is all about. Indigenous port varieties for this great wine that that port is very diverse, very confusing sometimes because we have different styles of wines, the rubies, the whites, the tawnies, the colheitas, vintage port, late bottle vintage. So it's very, very, diverse, but these are absolutely outstanding wines. And port is probably the biggest ambassador of Portugal. When you talk about Portugal, you talk about Cristiano Ronaldo, but you also talk about port wine.
Well, and port is such it's such a historical anchor in terms of not only Portugal but the wine business. Everybody knows the style of port now, and I'm a huge port lover. From as you said, tawnies and colheitas, single vintage tawnies, and late bottled vintage and vintage ports, and so there's so many different styles, and they're fortified, and yes, they're generally sweet, but there are still some dry styles of port. There's drier that people have to fall in love with. So I promise we will do a full port Leslie and Friends live. We won't focus as much on port today because we're tasting your table wines, your dry style table wines. But when you talked about the process of making port, I have to show this great photo. I posted it on both Instagram and Facebook, and I've had quite a few questions of what is happening. Somebody said, "Is that a soccer team with tattoos?" Tell us what's happening here. This is the making of port.
That's that's the way we port is the fruit is processed in the very beginning. So the fruit is handpicked in the Douro because of the it's mountain viticulture. So we have almost no mechanization. So all the work in the vineyard, all the vineyard management, all the picking, all the pruning, all the work that we do in the vineyard has to be done by hand. So the fruit comes in. It's slightly crushed, and then it goes into these granite tanks that we call lagares. And for port, for the first 2 to 3 days, the fruit is crushed by foot until fermentation starts. It seems
and a lagar is like a big sort of granite tub, isn't it?
Like a pool, yes, exactly. So you fill it up halfway with the grape skin and the how do I call the hapes, and then you start crushing. This seems a lot of fun, but I tell you, Leslie, it's extremely hard work.
I have done it once, and I'm telling you, after about 5 minutes, I was exhausted.
Exactly. A lot of people ask if this is clean. They go, "Oh my gosh!" They put their feet and their legs there and all that. No problem whatsoever. Don't forget that we will go then through fermentation and port. The simple way that port is made, we stop the fermentation at a certain brix level by adding 77% clean spirit. So it's completely clean, safe to drink, and all that. One thing I need to say about port, and I always say this a lot because a lot of times when we're showing our wines, we've been with the Wine Spectator New York Wine Experience and lots of shows around Canada and United States and presenting the wines, and then people say, "Oh, you have port there." I say, port gives me a little bit of headache. That's not true. There's one rule.
No, it's not true. Alcohol gives you headaches, but
one rule that we were taught since we were very, very young about port wine: you start your lunch or your dinner with white wines and champagne, sparklings, and then you move to whites and reds, and then most of the ports, there are exceptions obviously, but most of the ports are dessert wines, and they should be paired with cheeses, chocolate desserts, and things like that. The rule is very simple: once you start with port, you finish with port. That's the rule. Don't drink any, especially spirits, on top of port wine. Then you will get a headache. You will get the worst hangover of your life.
The amount of alcohol, people. It's the
And
amount of alcohol that gives you the headache.
Average level of alcohol in port wine is 20%. So it's pretty strong, high residual sugar, a lot sweeter, but fantastic with.
Fantastic with. I've had whole meals in Portugal with port wines served throughout the meal. You know, so beautiful, especially aged ports. So again, we can, you know, talk about port forever because I love the style so much. And I know you have to tell a quick story about your son, because I love this when we were chatting. You know, earlier about your son and soon to be new baby, right?
Yes. Well, we were sort of baptized with port when we were little babies. So my grandfather would, you know, just wet his finger, put a little bit of port in our lips, and the rule was it will stay in their blood forever, and it did. So the guess here is that this happened when we were when I was maybe 3 months old, something like that. My son was born in Brazil. My wife, she's Brazilian. And my son was born in Brazil in 2015. And I decided to change that a little bit. So the first thing he tried as soon as he popped out, when he was 3 minutes old, was a vintage port made by his great-great-grandfather. It was a vintage port from 1887. Wow. And this is what I did. I got a little zip, put it in his lips, and that's it. This is the first thing he tried in his entire life, even before her mother's milk. And this is very special with port, because if you think...
So it'll stay in his blood forever.
Correct. It's a wine that was made in the 19th century. The bottle was aged through the 20th century, and it was opened in the 21st century. So in 2 weeks' time, my second son will be born on March 24th, and I'm here thinking, what's going to happen here? It's the same thing. 3 minutes old. I'll be back with some port.
Salud on that one. Salud on that one. Oh, congrats. In 2 weeks, you will get no sleep again. You remember that.
I'm ready. Let it come. I'm ready. No problem.
Oh, fantastic. So as we move into tasting these wines, because we're getting a little caught up here, we're going to talk about first off, this white wine that is, I'm in love with it. And maybe Sydney, I see, is on with Folio. Maybe you could post a link about where people could buy these wines. I know that you can certainly find some of them through your local retailers, through winesearcher.com, through wine.com. So this wine, the Crosto Blanc, or white wine, Branco, I guess, white wine, is from Douro, and we'll talk about what that means. It doesn't say Quinta do Crasto, it says Crasto, and it is gorgeous. This is about $18 to $20. I saw the prices.
Correct.
This is my new spring summer wine. This is so delicious, and it's made with grape varieties that are indigenous and hard to pronounce. Let's talk about those grape varieties.
Well, that's the thing that I keep mentioning before. When you drink Douro wines and whites and reds from the Douro, you have to keep an open mind, an open spirit, because everything you're going to try in your senses, in your nose and in your palate, this will be different from everything that you are used to drink. Why? Because these are the exact same varieties that we use from port. So these are indigenous port varieties, both for the whites and for the reds. Sometimes people say, wait a minute, you're using port grapes for a white wine? So this is kind of a sweet white wine? No, nothing like that. Just a white wine as any other. But the Crasto Douro white, what we have here, it's a blend of 3 white port varieties. So they're called Vinhozinho. So it's a bit...
Vinhozinho. I'm working on my Portuguese accent. Vinhozinho.
Which is 40%. And then we have 30% of Govaio and 30% Rabigato.
And Rabigato. Okay.
Rabigato, if you translate Rabigato in Portuguese, Rabigato stands for cat tail. The tail. Cat's tail. So
it's 40% Vinhozinho, 38% Govaio,
and 30% Rabigato.
And then 30% Rabigato. So great grape varieties, and what it imparts is this minerality to the wine, and we'll talk about that because of the soils as well. Give the Douro region wines such incredible distinctiveness, but so it has this streak of minerality. It's got this lovely citrus character, almost a little lemon curd aroma, but really quite dry on the palate and so refreshing, but still a little weighty. So if you're a Sauvignon Blanc lover, you'll love it because it doesn't have those aggressive sort of tart fruit characters, but it has this minerality. If you like dry style Rieslings as well. If you like even unoaked styles or lighter oak styles of Chardonnay, this would go well because of the viscosity in the body of the wine. Even though it's only 12% alcohol, you have such unique character. Oh, sushi with this wine, a poolside with this wine, and it's glorious.
The plan here is to, for the Douro White, what we want is, it's an easy wine. This has, I think, a fantastic acidity. It's very fresh, lots of fruit, tropical fruit. This is what I call the poolside wine. This is a wine that you can enjoy by itself when you get home. It's a wine that you can easily pair with. I love to have this with all types of seafood. We have some of the best seafoods in the world in Portugal. So seafood and fish, even light dishes, this goes extremely well. As you said, this is 12.5% in alcohol. So, it's, and the thing about Douro Whites, Leslie, these are probably the youngest wines in the world, because the Douro has been making white wines, all of the Douro producers, for maybe 12, 15 years max.
Right.
And we are absolutely fascinated with the aging process. They do have aging potential. You will see that.
Oh, for sure, because it's vibrant acidity, and incredible minerality. So this is a great wine to explore, the Crosto Douro White. And then let's move on to reds, because let's take a little interlude between the two reds we're going to taste and talk about the place, the soil. So for those of you who are just joining us, I see a few folks just joined. Hello, Robin and Robin. One a male from New York and the other a female from Los Angeles. So hello, hello, both of you wonderful people. We are visiting the fantastic country of Portugal with Miguel Roquette of Quinta de Crasto in the Douro. And this is basically a map of the wine regions of Portugal. And so Miguel is calling us from the city of Porto, right there, that black dot, and talking about his wines in the Douro, this beautiful region in the Burgundy, incredibly historic region. And when you see the soil of this place, I go back to this photo, when you see the dramatic terraced hillsides, you can barely walk up some of them. It's incredible when you're visiting. And you feel the heat of the summer months. Absolutely. And you feel the cold of the winter months. Speak to the terroir. Speak to the place.
I think I'm suspicious, obviously, but I think that the Douro is the ultimate definition of terroir. It's just it's there because we have, as you can see in that picture, we have mountainous viticulture. We have really, really steep valleys and elevations, very, very steep, very inclined. We have on the left of the picture that very old plot of old vines planted together. You have some vertical plantings, but when it gets very, very steep, the only way for you to plant is with building the terraces. Obviously,
I'm trying to see if I can zoom in with my low-tech way on these terraces. They're incredible, the terraces, building the terraces. There we go.
And you can see that's the terraces, exactly. You can see that we have 2 rows per terrace, and obviously with inclination, it's so steep that we obviously lose a little bit of land. So the density of planting in the terraces is a little bit lower than, of course, in flat land. The climate of the Douro is, well, it's cold in winter. We had a very, very cold winter this year, especially December and beginning of January, but nothing compared to, to what you have in New York and the northern parts of US, nothing like that.
But it's still cold. I mean, I've been there, it can be cold. Mm-hmm.
It can be cold. We do, we have olive trees, olive oil around. So another thing that we love in the Douro is that in wintertime, whenever we get to the Douro, everything you eat, lunch, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, is cooked in wood fire, and that is absolutely fantastic. It's the smell and the fresh organic products from the garden.
Because even though you're only a couple hours away from the coast in the city of Porto, you're really in this rugged, intense, mountainous area. It's something. Yeah.
That's a good point, Les. Douro has been declared as World Heritage in 2001, so it's extremely protected now. And that's the thing. It's one of the wine regions that when you arrive, you will not find a lot of infrastructures. You will not find lots of restaurants to eat. Not a lot of hotels. You have to look your way around. But it's wild country, and this is what makes the Douro so special. It's protected. It's all about nature, smells, and wildlife.
And you've got this, climate, as you said, that is winter months. And I love the quote that you say about the climate. Tell everybody that one, because it's so true.
It's the nine months of winter, 3 months of hell.
9 months of winter and 3 months of hell. And by hell, he means temperatures well over 100 degrees Fahrenheit.
Well, hell is really hell on earth. I mean, sometimes we have, late July, beginning of August, sometimes it's a problem. You can have some very, very strong heat waves that come by, but we're talking about, well above 100 degrees in the shade. In a few years, you can actually have these schist walls around the property, and when the stone is very, very dark, it gets so hot that seriously you can fry an egg on that wall.
Right on the terraced hillsides. And Suzanne asks, "Is the weather why Miguel lives in Porto?" Life in Porto too.
I live in Porto because we're by the ocean. I surf almost every day or whenever I can. And again, now we have amazing infrastructure here. 40 years ago, it would take us 5 hours to get up there. Nowadays, you can go in the morning and come back in the afternoon. It takes about 1 hour and 30 minutes drive. Amazing highways. It's fantastic. So this is, I think, that's the thing to do in Portugal. You arrive either in Porto or Lisbon. What you should do is to rent a car and just explore the country.
Drive. It's small enough to do it. But I remember the first time I went up from Porto to the Douro, and you take a train. And this was an old rickety train that literally went across, it took us 4 hours by train, it felt like, and you're in this little rickety old car. It was fantastic to see. And
you travel back in time. It's all about, tradition, culture, 900 years of history. Porto is the third consecutive year the best European destination, and Portugal, although we do have our political problems and issues with like any other country, but we also have something very important. We are the third safest country in the world, and compared to European standards, it's very affordable. Accommodation, food, transportation. It's fantastic.
It's a gorgeous place, and the wines. And we're going to talk about the next two wines, because I know Sydney posted where you could buy also the Quinta do Crasto Superior, which we're going to talk about next. The red wine, the first red table wine that we're tasting right now, Crasto Superior, and from the Douro DOC, of course, which means the highest designation of quality, and a demarcated wine region, which we'll talk about. But let's talk about schist, because we say schist happens, right?
Schist happens. That's a new expression. Schist happens. So schist is very important because this is what makes these wines different. As I mentioned before, grape varieties here for the whites and for the reds. There are no international varieties. These are all indigenous varieties, okay? So you will have a different experience in your senses. It's up to you to judge if you like them or not, but the wines are very gastronomic. They're extremely balanced. Douro is hot country, as you said before, so for the reds, you'll find, usually 13.5 to 14.5. This is what you should be looking at in terms of alcohol level in Douro wines. But the schist
and again, that's, as we're educating people about these dry style table wines from the Douro, when you're talking about port, we were talking about 20% alcohol, right? 13.5% alcohol is like a California Pinot Noir, all right? And 14.5% alcohol is like a California Cabernet Sauvignon. These are not heavy, intense reds. These are elegant and still vibrant reds that have such uniqueness because of the grape varieties.
Correct. We don't go as high as the Zinfandels, you know, that's 17.
No, those California's infidels are approaching port. Let me tell you that right now.
Some are outstanding. Some are really outstanding. But yes, the schist is very important because it's schist is the subsoil of the Douro, and when you are close to the river, as we are, this is where you'll find schist pretty much everywhere. It's important because it's a hard rock, but schist is when you dig into the underground to build new terraces, what you will see is filaments of schist, and it's always vertical and in slices, so it breaks quite easily, although it's very hard. It's always, always, always vertical. You don't find the rock horizontally, so the slices are always vertical.
And it's important because you think of a layer cake, right? And so as like a layer cake, but turned on its side, the vine's roots can grow in between those schist and get down to where they need to because it's so hot.
Exactly. You can have 3 weeks of intense rain, pouring rain every day, and as soon as the rain stops, you go outside and there'll be no water. The water penetrates in the underground. This is very important because it creates reserves for future vintages. The same thing goes with the roots. The roots can cut through these rocks very easily. And for some of our older vines and old plantings, the roots can go as deep as 100 feet. And this is where you get all the minerality and all the good ingredients, all the good acids to make good wines. This is very, very important.
It's very important. So schist, the climate, the hot, cold, really, are such distinguishing characteristics of not only port wines of the Douro, but of these dry style table wines. And this, the Crasto Superior, we're again talking about this wine about $28, $30 probably here in the States. And again, Sydney's posted a link of where people could buy this. And this means something, doesn't it? Superior.
Yes. So the Douro region, the demarcation, when it happened in 1756, the Douro was divided in 3 subregions.
And I just so happen to have a map.
Wow, you did well. So there you go. So you have the Douro in the middle there, the red, the blue river, and then you have the lower Corgo, which we call Baixo Corgo, which is further west, close to the ocean. Cima Corgo, this is where Crasto is, and then you have what is known Douro Superior, which is mostly known as Upper Douro. And the Douro Superior, if you see at the very edge of the picture, the river there goes up, and this is where you have on the yellow side, this is the Portuguese side, and on the white side is the Spanish side. So this is the international Douro. So that's further.
It becomes the Douro, doesn't it, in Spain?
It becomes the Douro, exactly. So the river starts in the north of Spain, runs for about 600 miles all the way down to Porto, to the city of Porto. And the Douro Superior, this is a very, very dry region.
And very remote. I mean, it's super high, again, very remote out there, very rugged, very, very highly elevated, and incredibly hot and rugged.
Very much so. We've decided in the year 2000, we decided that it was also important to have some land in the Douro Superior to start, to complement the quality of our wines. We started with a planting of 30 hectares, so roughly 70 acres. And nowadays we have a property with 114 hectares, so close to 300 acres planted. But in the Douro Superior, because of the climate, and keep in mind that when we say hot country and hell in summer, it's very dry. There's no humidity levels.
No.
Douro Superior, it's compared with the Sahara Desert in terms of rainfall, and the temperatures in summer are just boiling. It's absolutely incredible.
Right.
So there is the need to use drip irrigation up there. So we do have drip irrigation in all our vines in the Douro Superior.
And again, we call it the Upper Douro versus sort of the lower, right?
So the Upper Douro Superior goes all the way to the Spanish border. Mm-hmm. Actually, our new project, our new property, we are about 10 minutes by boat from the Spanish border. So, and this makes the wines also a bit different. The Crasto Superior Douro Red, so this is also a blend. The white wine, by the way, just to mention that it's 100% stainless steel, so there's no contact with oak, all right? On the Superior Red, you can read on the front label that this is matured in oak. So here we have, and just to make sure, I'll tell you the exact proportion. It's 18 months in French oak, and it's about 85% French and 15% American oak. And here we have a little bit of used barrels. So once you smell,
and the oak is not apparent at all in this wine. You really don't get this, sense of that you would when you're hit by oak character in a California wine. This is very well integrated.
So that's what we want. We want the first thing for you to feel is the typical Douro fruit, the classic, the dark berries and dark, dark plums, and that's what you get in this wine. Crasto Superior Red. This is a recent project. The very first vintage was 2012. So we are now tasting the 2016.
And this is Touriga. So the grape varieties that go into port wine, you're using the same one. So Touriga Nacional, 50%, 25% Touriga Franca, 20% Tinto Roriz, and which cross over in Spain, of course, is Tempranillo, and then Sozal, right? So you've got these same grape varieties, but such a different expression between port and this dry style table wine.
Correct. Think about this, Leslie. In the Douro, over 100 years ago, we had close to 100 different native varieties planted. And the flagship variety for Portugal is definitely Touriga Nacional. Everyone knows about Touriga Nacional. Touriga Nacional is being widely planted in most of the wine regions in the world. It was actually adapted to Bordeaux last year, or in 2019, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right, because of global warming. It's now warm enough in Bordeaux to grow Touriga Nacional.
It's a fantastic fragrancy variety that makes outstanding wines. It's always important in port production, without any doubt. I can tell you that 99% sure that in most of the port wines that you will drink, Touriga Nacional is part of the blend. And it also is fantastic by itself as a single variety. This is what we do. It's a premium wine. It's only 5,000 to 7,000 bottles produced every year, but absolutely outstanding.
This is a food wine. So again, you guys, this is a wine to seek out if you love intense and fleshy Pinot Noirs, if you enjoy spicy, maybe French Syrahs, if you enjoy, a lighter style California, maybe even a Merlot or something. It's got vibrancy, it's got freshness, but it has that beautiful deep purple fruit character. And it dances on your palate. This does not hit you, wallop you over the head. This is an elegant 13.5% alcohol wine that is so perfect for food. So, give it a try. The grape varieties may be unique and different, but it really, creates this wonderful, wonderful sort of silky texture and freshness.
And although we're talking about, $28, $30 retail, keep in mind that these wines are not fined or filtered. So they will throw a deposit, the sediment, with some time. But we are learning, because this is also a learning process for us, because we've been making dry wines for 25 years. Not just us, the entire Douro producers. Before it was port, but we could not sell the dry wines or produce the dry wines under our own label. This was against the rules. This only changed when we joined the European community back in 1986. Keep in mind that these wines are unfiltered, unfined and unfiltered, and they, as far as we can say, they really have an amazing aging potential. So this is also a keeper. And in terms of cork, that we are the biggest cork producers in the world. So 80% of the corks come from Portugal. So we use very high-end quality corks here.
And it is fascinating to go and visit the cork forest as well. It's fascinating to see the process and the procedure of making cork. It's terrific.
That's in the south, in another wine region called Alentejo. So it's that's it. But Crasto Superior is a blend. So it's a blend that we decided to keep, not exactly in the same percentages every year, but what we want here is to show the very same character and the same approach. And this is all about like I said, the dark fruit of the Douro, dark plums, very ripe, but full body wine without any doubt.
It's full body, but it still has a prettiness, has a delicacy to this wine that is surprising when you look at it. So, talking about ageability and talking about intensity, we're stepping up now to the next level with our final wine, which is your highly awarded. I think I have this correct, that it was number 49 in the top 100 last year for Wine Enthusiast. Is that correct?
Yes, last year.
And this is I'm going to reach up here. This is the now it says Quinta do Crasto, as opposed to just saying Crasto, Douro, and there you see 2016 Reserva old vines. All right, old vines. So this wine is highly lauded, about $45, $50. And by the way, one hell of a bargain when you're talking about that price versus this quality. Crazy. This one beats so many $100 bottles I've had, trust me. And your winemaker, I'm going to brag a little bit. You're going to brag a little bit about your wonderful winemaker, Manuel Lobo. Talk about him, because
Manuel has been with us for 10 years now. He's fantastic. He knows the Douro very, very well. He does, very specific things. He picking decision. It's not just looking at the calendar. He goes into the vineyards, he tastes the berries, he makes sure that, he knows every plot. He usually uses an expression which I think it describes the Douro very well. When you look at the vines and the vineyards, it's a puzzle. It's a real puzzle, because you have vineyards growing at river level.
Let's go back here and look again, right?
There you go. You have vineyards growing at river level against 500 meters in altitude. You have different sun exposures, different soils, different types of plantings, different varieties, mixed plantings or single varietals. So it's endless, And last Thursday last week, he was finally awarded as Red Wine of the Year, Winemaker of the Year in Portugal. So he's officially the winemaker of the year for Portugal. Very, very proud and celebrating with him. And it's a well-deserved accomplishment, because it's not just about winemaking, it's all together. Our team of viticulture, vineyard management, the facilities are also very important. Combining the traditional with the modern technology, I think this all makes this final result, which is quite impressive.
And this wine, now we're going to still only, when we're looking at 14.5% alcohol still. And there, this is just sort of a field blend of how many different varieties, 25, 30?
When you talk, when we look at the old vines in the Douro, old vines for us are usually, we consider old vines any plantings that have to be at least 40 years or older, But in the state at Crasto, we have some vineyards that were planted right at the beginning of last century by my great-grandfather. And when phylloxera was controlled with the American rootstock, for some reason, our ancestors, when they were replanting the vines, for some reason that we cannot explain, they have decided to mix plant everything. And how mixed? This is something that we did with our very top wine, which is called Vinha Maria Teresa, which is named after his first great-granddaughter. And Vinha Maria Teresa is just it's a 10-acre plot that you actually can see in the pictures that you shared before. And we've done a very interesting project.
Hang on, can you see it here?
Correct. That's on the left side. I don't know if it's left or right now, but you see that brown plot there. That's the Vinha Maria Teresa, which is now on shade. And this again shows you the concept of terroir. Again, sun exposures, very exposed to the sun in the morning, and then it goes into shade in the afternoon. So what we did, just to complement this with the Reserva, we've done a genetic project to identify every single varietal in this plot.
Wow.
And we came up, this is concluded, and we officially can tell you that we have 54 different varieties planted in that plot.
54 on the label. It says up to 30, right? It says 25, 30. And I have to tell you, Suzanne, who I was just going to say, Suzanne, my friend who's in Aspen, Colorado, and she is a huge red wine lover of intense reds. And I was just about to say, Suzanne, you should order this wine. And so funny, she just said, I'm ordering the Reserva now. And so did Mike. Mike said, I just ordered some too.
That's nice to have it.
You guys will not be disappointed. I'm telling you, this wine it just blows you away, because you're expecting with this intense dark fruit, but still, this lovely rose petal kind of character almost to the nose, and this deep saturated fruit. It still has this ping of vibrancy, this minerality, this core of tautness that sort of leads you all the way through. And then on the finish, you are draping yourself in a cashmere scarf here. You are giving that beautiful texture. The tannins are there. They're a little bit grippy, but they're, softened by this beautiful fruit concentration. It really is a stunning wine. I had it open last night, this bottle, and poured it here. Again, now it's noon in California. and it's just opening up now, literally just opening up now. So make sure you open it up, decant it a lot, or open it up a couple days.
Very important, Leslie. This one, the Reserva for us, the Reserva old vine. So when people ask us, so what we have here in terms of varieties, the answer is always the same. We don't know. So what do you mean? Well, this is a field blend. We have at least 35 to 40 different varieties, all mixed. So it's impossible to tell you the percentages. We know the names, but the percentages are completely impossible. So picking decision is very important. At the same time, you need also to play with high quality oak. This is very, very important. And I think one of the things that you guys will notice here, and this is where I think Manuel is absolutely brilliant, is the oak integration. This is 18 months in French and American oak, 85% French, 15% American oak. But the oak is there playing its role. It's not, you don't get the oak right at the front. You get the fruit, you get the layers. This is a wine that will, I think the best way to talk about the Reserva, this is a wine that will talk to you. This is as simple as that. And what I strongly recommend for you to do is to
it's kind of whispering to me now. It's not talking. I mean, it doesn't talk loudly. It sort of whispers to you and says, come hither, come here.
It's fun what you mentioned before, Leslie, because this is exactly it's a key point, what you did, which is first, open the wine, 3 or 4 hours before you drink it. The wine needs air. Decant it. That's super important. If you open this bottle, this is sometimes a little bit of a problem in restaurants. When you order a bottle of Reserva and the sommelier pours you a glass, you will get 40% of the full potential of the wine. This wine needs time to express itself. Decanting is extremely important. And you can also do one thing. If you this is a food wine, you can be really adventurous in terms of food pairing. You can go with game, venison, casseroles, strong cheeses, ribs, absolutely. Everything goes. It's fantastic. It will never overcome the food. It has its own character and structure to pair really well. But if by any chance there's anything left in the decanter, keep the decanter open for 24 hours and try the wine again the following night. And you will find different layers. You will find the mocha and coffee and, tobacco. It's just, and this is where this comes from the old vines. It comes from the age of the vines and the diversity and the mixed varieties that we have here. Again, also not filtered, so this will throw a sediment with time. But this is a wine that first vintage for us is 94. I think this 2016, you're still looking at least another 20 years of cellaring potential. Easily.
I think we have a little echo now.
Sorry?
I think we have an echo now on your computer. So maybe you can hit the non-echo. There we go. Okay. But we're wrapping up anyway. We're wrapping up because, I just have to say, I've loved your wines for a long time and have had the pleasure of meeting you. And they really, to me, express that beauty of the history of Portugal in the property, of course, that you have with Crasto dating to 1615, but the future of what you see from the Douro and Portugal in general in terms of wine, combining the incredible high quality uniqueness with affordability that has put Portugal on the world stage coming up. So, I hope people walk away from this saying, I need to try those Portuguese wines. I need to try those Crasto wines or Quinta do Crasto wines. And then they're going to want to say, I want to go visit Miguel. I want to go to the
Doors are wide open. One thing, Leslie, when it comes to Portuguese wines, we, like any other country, we also produce volume, and quantity, and you have obviously cheap wines, the Vinho Verdes and wines on the $15, $20. People just say, oh, Portuguese wine, yeah, I'll buy bottles up to $20, but above that, I'd rather go to Spain or Italy. This is not true. And what I really used to push, I said, oh, you have Portuguese wine here. And I say, no, this is not a Portuguese wine. Well, it's from Portugal, but this is a Douro wine. This is the key. And this is what I strongly believe that it's going to happen in the future. I think in the next 5 years, you will see Portuguese, Douro wines just about everywhere. You mentioned the Wine Enthusiast last year with the number 49. This wine has been in the top 100 of Wine Spectator 5 times. And in 2008, it was in the top 10 and it was number 3. among 11,000 wines tasted, So whatever that means, press
So
and
we're giving
small.
you the insider track, everybody, to order this wine because you will not. It's fantastic. It's fantastic.
It's a safe move without any doubt. It's a safe move, and the thing is this: let the wine express itself. I think you'll be puzzled because it's different from your cabs and merlots and syrahs and pinot noirs. It's different, They are high enough.
It needs to get out and stretch out and relax in the glass. It needs to in the decanter. You need to give this time to open up and just really stretch out on the couch because it's fantastic. And we have a wonderful, great presentation. Thank you. And we are wrapping up. So I so appreciate you checking in from Porto. Give my love to the beautiful city. And we all can't wait to, raise a glass to you in Portugal and to toast opening up of the borders soon.
Yes, that's the plan. I also want to say on my behalf and on behalf of my family and all the Crasto team, this was such a great honor, to be in the show and to have the chance to share this with all your followers, with the beautiful people. I hope you're all well and safe. And our wishes is just that this pandemic just goes away as soon as possible because we just cannot stand it anymore. We want to travel. We want to travel. We want to have people here. We want to host people again and share the Douro, share our culture, and and go back to normal life. People say that life will never be the same again, but I think there's some good things happening. So I think the future is bright. The doors are wide open. Don't come all at the same time because it's not a big place. But we do have a tourist facility. We host people for lunches and dinners, and we have a wine shop. You can do tastings and taste the food. It's a fantastic experience. But if you plan to come in September, October, my advice would be book 2 or 3 months ahead because it's fully packed and you will not find a place to stay. This is how the Douro is getting. It's the new thing. It's the hidden secret, but this is where everyone wants to come. So doors are wide open. Leslie, I hope to see you again back here in Portugal this year.
I hope so too, Miguel. I promise. And thank you again for obrigada. Thank you. Thank you for taking the time out of your day for sharing all these gorgeous wines with us. And we'll see you soon. I'm going to say our Brazilian saúde, right?
Saúde, exactly.
Saúde.
Cheers, everyone. Thank you so much.
Chin chin, cheers, salud. Thank you so much.
Thank you.